on that subject, the largest political movement party in the history of the United States. The history of it was the Ku Klux Klan. At its peak, it had 3 million members. And Klan members infiltrated quite openly both Republican and Democratic parties and were centrally engaged in segregating. Check it out, just like Ku Klux Klan membership on Google, and you'll get these figures. That was the largest political party, which says something. This party is a joke compared to all that. You have a libertarian current, led by Ron Paul in his book. What their position is, the state shouldn't intervene in anything, including the bailouts. They're consistent. At the same time, they're totally opposed to the US wars in the rest of the world. And then you have what I call crazy Republicans, who joined it for a bit of fun. But this grouping now is virtually defunct. I mean, it's won some successes, but it can't answer the real problems. So, what is the choice? Do you want republicanism under the Republicans or republicanism under the Democrats? That becomes the choice, which is why some of the lessons have to be learned from the movements abroad, regardless of the fact that the US is an imperial power. Once that begins to happen, then many things can be discussed, and many changes, at least ideas, can be seriously considered again. Instead of reverting to a condition where dissent is marginalized, punished, where people see nothing wrong with young Americans pouring out into the streets in Chicago, in Washington, D.C., in New York, to say, hurrah, hurrah, we killed this one guy, hurrah. What change is that going to bring about? So what if this guy's being killed? What is going to change as a result of it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing except a further debasement of American political culture and political life in this country. If you can't see what's wrong with that, to treat the world as if it was a, cowboy movie, then we're in trouble. Not just the rest of the world, but you too. And oil can be negotiated. But more important than negotiating oil, one has to think of a world in which oil reserves dry up. And that means thinking in terms which are alien to so many people now, but weren't in the 30s and 40s, including in this country. And that is thinking in terms of planning, social planning, planning a different future, planning a world in which most of its citizens benefit. That can be done. It's a long way away. But the oil-producing countries, the citizens in these oil-producing countries, are fighting to bring about changes, and a lot can be learned. How many of you read in the papers over the years the propaganda? The reason the Arab countries are dictatorships is because Muslims don't like democracy, Arabs don't like democracy, Iranians don't like democracy. Nonsense. Total and complete nonsense. And those of us who knew this world got tired of saying it's not the ordinary people who don't want democracy, it's the elites and the thugs who rule over them. They stopped them having it. And most of the West has supported these people for one variety of reasons or the other. And in some cases continue to do so. So don't blame your own neuroses on these people. When they get the chance, they vote. And now we see they don't just vote, they fight for the right to be able to vote and determine their own governments. And it would be ironic, truly ironic, if at a time when in South America and the Arab world people are trying to enhance democracy, make it more accountable, make it more participatory, give it more powers, that in the West democracy itself is being hollowed out and becoming a shell, essentially, for the big corporations. And that is the process which we can all see taking place today. And as to how that process will come to an end will depend on many of you. You don't like, I know, it's awkward and difficult to think about these things, but it has to be done. Because what you have to understand is that you have certain responsibilities as citizens. If you're not being informed by your media networks, inform yourselves, which is much easier now with technological developments. It was impossible in the 50s and 60s, though the media was better, it has to be said. But now it's possible to get alternative means of information. Because it's a responsibility you owe not only to yourselves, but you owe it also to a world in which you're a dominant power. And you have to learn about this world, and what the needs of the world are, and how certain of the actions you undertake, the effect they have on the rest of the world. Because we live in one world, and it is now an interdependent world. You can't go back on that. And we either move forward together, or we go down together. Not through mutual mad nuclear war, but through what is happening to countries economically and ecologically. It's a threat which shouldn't be underestimated. Oil is a major part of it, but oil is now also a metaphor. Is this world capable? Are the people on this planet capable of creating and thinking about, leave alone creating, thinking about a future in which oil will not be in such new supplies? And to even think about it, you have to think not about productions and living standards, but of living differently. And that is a big thing to do, but others have done it, so you should too. Thank you. Well, they can, as long as they've got the oil, they can put up the prices or put them down, but in 73, the oil-producing countries in the Arab world punished the West for the war, the Israel-Egyptian war, and stopped the flow of oil, which immediately with automatic results. Usually they don't do it individually. OPEC still functions, with the Arab countries, Iran, Venezuela, Western countries used to be members and still are. So negotiations take place. When these countries have elected governments, how will they intervene on the oil front in relation to prices? I think they will intervene to serve their own self-interest. They will look, that will be the change. They will think about their interests first and US interests second, except for the Saudis, because they know where their bread is buttered. So the other countries, I think, will begin to do that, and the results of that We don't know. It hasn't happened as yet, but it's very likely to do that. The Venezuelans do it. The Iranians do it. I mean, the Iranians signed a 30-year deal to supply gas and oil to China, which the United States didn't have. But they went ahead, the Chinese and the Iranians, and signed this deal. And China is now building a huge port, because they don't want to be dependent on the Gulf states, a huge port in Pakistan, in the city of Gwadar in Balochistan, from where they will ship the stuff to China, possibly also by road through Pakistan. So all these things are taking place at the moment. And the control over their own oil, we shall see. I mean, in Iraq, you know, a very interesting book has just come out. I can't remember the author's name, showing that before the actual war began in Iraq, what the